Thank you to our MCs. So សួស្តីលោកលោកស្រីអ្នកនាងកញ្ញានិងបងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាកិច្ចពិភាក្សាបន្ទាប់នឹងត្រូវធ្វើប្រព្រឹត្តឡើងជាភាសាអង់គ្លេសនាងខ្ញុំដែលជាអ្នកសម្របសម្រួលក៏នឹងប្រើប្រាស់ជាភាសាអង់គ្លេសដែរនាងខ្ញុំសូមអធិស្ឋានចំពោះការរអាក់រអួលមួយនេះផងដែរ Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As per our next sessions on debate tournament, the debate will be conducting in English. Therefore, as your moderator, I will be speaking in English onwards. I would like to apologize for such inconvenience, I'm sorry. On October 19th, last month, we conducted 6 rounds of debates. 4 rounds were conducted in the preliminary rounds, and then we have 2 semi-final rounds. To find 2 panelists that you're going to see today. For topics such as AI, implementations to cybersecurity resilience, I can assure you that the competition was very intense yet exciting. Today, there will be no difference. There's still more excitement and probably more cheer from our audience. So now, I would like to invite our debaters team. First is AUPP Capycoon. Second, I would like to invite Apsara Tech. They will be debating under the topic, this House believes that internet governance should prioritize privacy over national security. AUPP Capycoon will be representing government side and the Apsara Tech will be representing opposition sides. For rules and procedures, the motion will be given 2 days before the actual debate, which already happened. And then there will be one timekeeper. The first ring, it will be over 15 seconds. And the second ring, it will be over 30 seconds. And the speech will stop. I will be stopping you as well. Avoiding mentioned research article or surveys lifted from Google. Instead, be expressive, opinionated, and original. The debaters themselves will assign the speaker role. Each debater will use 1 sheet of A4 paper only, which was already given. The debater can read his or her own paper. The moderator will give another paper on that day of the debate. The debater will not be allowed to read from their gadgets. The debater only use their gadgets for timekeeping. The debater, however, can use their gadget to stopwatch and can only use when the actually speech begins. Point of information are brief questions, not no more than 15 seconds, or 2 questions offered by any other of the team during speech at any time of the speech. So now we would like to welcome our adjudicator. So I would like to invite our adjudicator in alphabetical order. First is Ms. Jane Wusa, lecturer of the Department of International Relations at the Institute for International Studies and Public Policies and a junior researcher at the Center of Southeast Asian Studies. Second, I would like to invite Mr. Diep Kong, ICT Business Consultant, partner at YIGF Consulting Code Ltd. Third, I would like to invite Dr. Lee Ratana, Director of Research at Cambodian Academy of Digital Technology, CADT. Now, without any further ado, under the theme or topic, this House believes that internet governance should prioritize privacy over national security will commence. First, I would like to invite from the government side, leader of the government side, the Prime Minister.
Hello. I will begin my speech when I say my first word. Panels, it is undeniable that we're all increasingly connected in this digital age as almost everyone has access to the internet. Every time we like a post, share your thoughts online, or even just browsing Google, we're leaving a so-called digital footprint. This footprint contains a vast amount of personal information ranging from liking Instagram posts to our financial habits and our private messages. In a world where tensions have been eased and diplomatic solutions are prioritized, the protection of our digital privacy is more important than ever. Thus, it is principled that we recognize the value of our personal data and take steps to protect it. Now, the House of Government believes that in this digital age, the balance of power between individual privacy and national security should tilt decisively towards individual privacy, as we recognize the unchecked balances of surveillance erodes fundamental human rights. Now, let's jump onto our keywords of this debate. First, it would be internet governance, in which it can be broadly defined as the development and application by governments that the private sectors and civil society in their respective roles, shared principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and programs that shape the evolution and use of the internet. Privacy is a way to conserve individual, industrial, and nationwide data collection from being leaked and accessed from other sources without consent. And national security, in internet governance terms, is the safety of a nation from being hacked or attacked in the invisible digital world, which makes the nation vulnerable to threats such as cyber attacks, data breaches, or digital propaganda against the government. For the sake of this debate, YIGF will scope it to this digital age where individuals have access to the internet. Now, let's set a burden for both sides. If side government can prove that individual rights should be prioritized as surveillance and data collection, justified as national security, violates on fundamental human rights, then we will back this debate home. However, if side opposition can convince us that national security concerns outweigh individuals' privacy rights in this digital age, and they must also prove that the necessity of surveillance, while also demonstrating that such measure of having national security over privacies are not only proportionate to the perceived threats, but also possess a demonstrable capacity to mitigate them, then side opposition can take this debate home. To support our claim to this debate, we will be bringing three main points to support our argument. First, side government will tell you why individuals are entitled to fundamental right of privacy and why it's an important element of a nation need. Second, we will analyze how privacy is going to promote a much more collaborative country compared to prioritizing safety right from the start. And lastly, YIGF will provide you with details on how overly prioritizing the national security measures can lead to more harm than good, which could result in oppression and abuse of power. Now, moving on to our first point. Individuals' fundamental right to have their privacy or their information should be achieved and protected, and most importantly, prioritized in the internet governance, as the achievement of this right is what builds a solid ground for a better outcome of the nation and its people. To better explain this point, side government will be structuring our explanation and supporting information into two. Firstly, we will tell you what individual right to privacy look like and why individual right must be protected and upheld and should be the priority of internet governance. Individuals' fundamental right, why should we care about individual right, and why is it justified that individual right must be protected at all costs? For instance, individuals are born into this world involuntarily, agree to a contract which everyone agree is social contract. So in social contract, individuals have to involuntarily give up the right to do things they want and accept the central authorities in order to protect the other right and gain government's protection. Therefore, as an exchange, it is only fair that these individuals have the right to have the freedom of speech and privacy without the pressure from said authorities and utilize their given rights in the contract according to what they deem best. Now, secondly, we're going to tell you why individuals' rights to privacy is the fundamental ground that's needed to build a nation. Internet governance is also a set of law, policies, and regulations. The purpose and the rule of law is to always serve the people because these individuals are the ones who structure and build a fundamental society. Citizens' right to uphold their privacy and do things freely without the pressure of surveillance and outright control from the government must be protected and prioritized. Otherwise, the break of this rule will lead to potential power imbalance by putting too much power on the government. And furthermore, the lack of privacy in this regard will lead to doubts and distrust amongst the people, which will further complicate future endeavors of the nations. To add weight to this argument, side government will further explain we further give explanation of this matter in the next 2 points. So moving on to our second point, individuals' rights to privacy is important and must be prioritized in the internet governance because this has shown a sense of reliability and the trust in the government providing to its citizens. At first, when citizen privacy is being prioritized, there's a high chance that they know that they can trust the government into making decisions in the digital space with the surveillance in mind. This allows the government and their people to work together, voicing out their concerns and opinions to create a more effective ethical framework on the usage of privacy in the digital space. Then, when people have a sense of trust in their government and the ethical framework are being made, national security will soon come into play. Because a good connection between the stakeholders, will lead to the country being more secure and transparent with one another. This means that oppression and abuse of power will no longer come to play. Instead, it will promote a sense of a collaborative society where people can come together in times of national crisis. Even in the most extreme cases, take COVID-19 for example, when every government declared a state of emergency. If the government and the people have a sense of trust in each other, civilians would be willing to give their consent for the government to use a part of their information for healthcare purposes and for the sake of the nation as a whole from drowning further into the pandemic. Instead, if you try the other approach, which is basically spying on every citizen for their symptoms and activities through their technology system, just like what they did in Wuhan, it would lead to people going to the other way, hiding their symptoms, disobeying the government measures, and unwillingly to cooperate for the greater good. And why is the national security system not working just as good to protect the people here? Because they don't trust their government when they are being quarantined. Their data and every information will be used by the government without them knowing, and they can't have a say about it since the government still holds a higher power in the state of emergency. So what are the impacts from doing this and not doing this? First of all, as I have mentioned, it will lead to more collaborative society where civilians can freely engage with the government. A more collaborative society is much safer than a society is not. Why? Why? Because in the case of national crisis, people
Sorry, you have to stop the speech now. Sorry.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite the leader of the opposition.
I will begin a speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, think about the last time you shared your personal information online. Maybe your banking details or even just a social media post. Now, imagine that your data are being intercepted by a cyber criminal. Alarming, right? But what if I told you that the national security efforts to protect against such threats actually enhances your privacy as well? And that is why our side of the House standing here today to oppose to the motion that stated that this House believes that internet governance should prioritize privacy over national security. Good afternoon once again, honorable judges, distinguished judges, the honorable guests, distinguished judges, and fellow opponents. First thing first, allow me to structure my speech into 3 key points. First, I will provide a few rebuttals to the proposition's claims. Second, I will contextualize the debate to clarify our stance. And last but not least, I will present our first ever argument. Moving on to a few rebuttals to the proposition's claims then. They claim that privacy is a fundamental human right. Well, privacy is a fundamental right. Security is actually essential, even more essential, to maintain a safe environment for exercising this right. And without the national security, remember that individuals' privacy is constantly at risk from external threats like cyber attacks or cyber threats, any form of cyber attacks. And secondly, the proposition also claims that privacy also should come first. But remember that without security, there is no way to ensure that data and privacy are safeguarded from malicious actors. And effective privacy protections rely on secure as well as digital infrastructure that the governments should prioritize national security to protect the individual privacy from threats. Now, moving on to the contextualization. What does our world look like then? So, first thing first, in the proposition world, no, thank you. In the proposition side, in their world, they assert that privacy must take precedence over national security in the internet governance, implying that security measures inherently threaten individual freedoms, right? But in our world, we argue that national security is actually the foundation upon that which privacy can safely exist. And without strong national security measures, cyber threats such as hacking, espionage, and data breaches compromise the very privacy that the proposition side seeks to protect. So, we recognize that privacy is important, but we assert that a balanced as well as security-first approach that is enforced through accountable as well as regulated practices allows privacy to thrive in a stable as well as trusted digital environment. And today, in today's debate then, it's not whether privacy is important or not, but whether it is realistically able to survive without prioritizing national security. So therefore, the burden of proof of the proposition side lies with that they have to demonstrate that prioritizing privacy over national security is sufficient for internet governance to protect individuals and the society as a whole. And we, the opposition side, will demonstrate that national security is actually a necessary foundation for privacy, safeguarding individual rights, and also securing the digital economy for the society as a whole. Moving on to our first ever argument then, which is national security as a prerequisite for privacy. 3 layers of analysis for this argument. First, national security as a shield for privacy. What we mean is that national security measures are our first line, our front line of defense against cyber threats, any forms of cyber threats, like maybe hacking or espionage. And if the national security is unchecked, it severely undermines individual privacy. And with cyber threats like hacking, data breaches, and espionage on the rise, security frameworks protect the personal data from external attacks. So the NIST, taking this as an example, the NIST cybersecurity framework in the United States, where they protect both government and private data, ensuring that the critical infrastructure is secure. And without these fortified defenses, personal privacy is left vulnerable, and security therefore provides the shield in which privacy can truly thrive. Second layer then would be about the balanced surveillance for effective threat detection. Well, effective national security is not about indiscriminate monitoring, but about targeted, proportionate surveillance aimed at... No, thank you. This balance protects citizens' privacy while enabling authorities to act on real risks. In the 2016 transatlantic aircraft plot, targeted surveillance prevented a catastrophe with the broad-scale privacy invasion, showing how prioritization of national security over privacy can protect public safety as well as privacy simultaneously. And through legally bound as well as efficient practices, authorities can prevent terrorism and cybercrime without unnecessarily intruding into the lives of everyday citizens. Last layer of analysis will be about the national security as the foundation that enables the exercise of all other rights, including privacy in here. So in our environments where national security is weak, privacy becomes irrelevant because individuals will lack the basic safety required to enjoy their freedoms or their rights. For example, countries that experience armed conflicts and the terrorist attacks, such as Afghanistan during the Taliban rule or areas affected by ISIS, demonstrate how a lack of national security leads to the complete erosion of civil liberties, including privacy as well. So only when security is restored can rights like privacy be meaningfully discussed and protected. Therefore, national security ensures that a society remains stable and safe enough, safe enough for human rights such as privacy to be meaningfully enforceable. And the government's foremost responsibility is to provide a secure environment where all human rights coexist. So therefore, our side of the House strongly stick to our stance that we will, that the internet governance should not prioritize privacy over national security. The opposition side has never been more proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Now I would like to invite Deputy Prime Minister.
I will begin my speech at the first word I speak. Now, before I begin the second point, or the third, before I begin the third points of the side of government, I would like to rebut what the first speaker of the side opposition has brought up first. First, they have said as a rebuttal to our first speakers that when security is achieved, it is a journey or the road or the way that privacy or the individual privacy within the country can be achieved as well. And they also said that the privacy in this regard is also a very important thing. However, the national securities must be achieved in order for this to happen. However, the side opposition recognized that in order for this national security within the example they have brought up to be achieved, they have focused most of the individual privacy. They have to go through everything single thing of like their citizen even in the daily life of information of the most basic information in order to make sure that this national security happen. Sure, then in that regard, you can say that on the surface level, they can achieve this national security. However, within the country, there are chaos. Why? Because when they forgo this individual privacy, it has led to several trust issues within the countries. Now, you can build a safe country and a peaceful country without some things or like some kind of foundational ground within the country being strong enough. Moreover, it can also lead to like a lot of misuse potential, also as well the overreach of the power as well. And most of the example regarding the Afghanistan and such is quite irrelevant to this motion as well. Now I will begin onto the third point of our side government. However, before I begin my third point, I would like to do some clarification in terms of like the second point, which my first speaker has brought up regarding. The first point that my side proposition has brought up is regarding the individual right to privacy is important enough and must be prioritized in the internet governance because this has shown a sense of reliability and trust to the government. This point is actually a very effective rebuttal against the first speaker of the side opposition as well as a case that support our argument as well. Now, in terms of like protecting the individual right, it will keep the country safer than going for a more oppressive approach that could lead to a retaliation from the public. Now, what would happen if you don't receive the public support during the time of crisis? A slight distrust in the government could lead to a riot, protests, and even a coup to overthrow the government, which lead to even more of like an unpeaceful country and an unsafe country. Now let's take the case of that happened in the Bangladesh, for example. That is the case of a riot or something when the government tried to overthrow the citizens, which in turn lead to this riot and also this protest as well. Trust is the most important aspect in the modern world, and in order to gain it, the government must respect what the citizen want, which is in control over their own information rather than let it be misused in any sort of way. Now, onto the third point of the side propositions. Individual rights and privacy is important and must be prioritized in the internet governance because this has shown a sense of individual rights to privacy must be prioritized and these individuals must have the right to consent their own information and use it freely because breaching this fundamental right by giving government accesses based on the sole reason of civilian can highly potentially lead to a civilian potentially lead to a disruption of order and an overreach of power and a high risk of misuse of data. For the sake of this argument, we will section the analysis into 2 points, this point into 2. Firstly, we will explain you how breaching individuals' right to privacy for national security will lead to an overreach of power in the government and environment matter. Let's take China, for example. China is very much respected for its priority and implementation of policy to ensure the national interest and security. However, to ensure this objective, China's government has a vast authority over their citizens' information for the purpose of civilian. During the COVID-19, for example, this had become a big issue as the pandemic. One of the examples of the state emergency was an excellent opportunity for the state state to rationalize human rights violation and validate new forms of control and surveillance to ensure public safety and health. Through these surveillance systems, China was able to harvest an incredible amount of data, including sensitive information on the citizen, such as medical treatment record, pharmaceutical purchases, or shop or restaurant that I have visited. Obviously, like this kind of thing is not wrong in terms of like where they go, in terms of like the social gathering. However, this information was not used to only prevent the social gathering, but it is also to silence information and updates about the outbreak, punish journalists and whistleblower even among its medical staff, use propaganda and censorship and even detention to suppress independent sources of information and post in social media criticizing its decision about the restriction introduced. Now on to the first analysis. What this example tell us? So this example has told us that by giving a national government too much authority over the citizen, especially in terms of their privacy, it will lead to an oppression of freedom of speech and a suppress to individual productivity due to the pressure and anxiety the oppression has caused. On to the second analysis, this overreach of power and authority of the government allow a high risk of misuse and a justification of human rights violation under the excuse of state emergency. First of all, this has violated the basic human right of individual is promised within the social contract, which my first speaker has spoken. The second of all, it has led to an oppression and harmful impacts of the citizen due to the abuse of power from the government. Thirdly, the act of censorship and data manipulation has led to a complete distrust from the international stage, a lack of cooperation during crisis, and ultimately a distrust among citizens has been mentioned in the second point. And this distrust has led to even more of like a problem in terms of future endeavor as well. Now, if side oppositions brought up that in the sense of like emergency, the principle of justifying the government in terms of like violating the individual right is a good thing, we would like to rebut that. That has this kind of example has actually been shown in the example of China during the COVID-19 already. This government has used this excuse to make sure that the right to this individual in terms of their protecting their information has been violated so and again because this is a state of emergency. And say even if they really need it in order to mitigate the risk of this pandemic or this kind of emergency, it only works if the state actually declared the national crisis, which is the actual declaration of the state where the government has a boost of power, or in some states like Japan or South Korea, it is called like a martial law. And if they said that it should be still within a justification of the government, sure, there will be more risk if this kind of implementation need to be wait until the declaration happen. However, but the law and order will be kept and upheld to prevent like the possible excuses of oppression and invasion of privacy during national crisis. And if the side opposition has brought up that, wouldn't that lead to more debt or more risk? Actually, if this kind of thing happen, things like political capital will make the process much easier. Basically, the government will be pressured to act faster and things will be better in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Now I would like to invite the Deputy on the opposition side. Thank you.
Am I audible? So my speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. Putting yourself into a country where cyber attacks could shut down the hospital, paralyze the power grids, and even send the economies into a chaos. All of this happened because we prioritize and put the privacies above the national security. We must question here, can we truly enjoy our privacy if our entire digital world is on the brink of the collapsing? Esteemed panels, ladies and gentlemen, 2 things I will do in my speech for today's debate. First, I will make a few rebuttal against the proposition claim. Secondly, I will present the second and the third arguments to reinforce why our team arguments are more efficient than our opponents. Moving to our rebuttal, the proposition keep repeating about the role and the mass surveillance that was racist that could be oppressed by the own its government. However, these types of mass surveillance, the opposition agree that if there was an unchecked surveillance or there is a mass surveillance, we would conduct what we call a target surveillance as a balanced approach. Within this approach, the opposition acknowledged that the mass surveillance is a flaw, but targeted surveillance based on specific intelligence is both effective and minimally invasive through artificial intelligence and through machine learning. Moreover, by prioritizing the national securities with focused, accountable measure, government can protect citizens with broad overreach criticized by the proposition. On top of that, the oversight mechanism that prevents the government from the overreach, where opposition agree that unchecked surveillance is problematic. However, modern security measures are frequently implemented with legal framework and oversight to prevent the abuses. Taking countries like the UK, who have a surveillance protocol that require a judicial approval, balancing both national security with the individual privacy, where these include the checks and balance system as the three separations of the powers were checking each other. So the government cannot misuse those powers to invade or overemphasize their powers on the personal privacies of the citizen. Moving to our second argument then, is that prioritizing national security is important for sustaining digital economy, which help protect personal privacy based on three main analyses. For first analysis, national security, accepted.
You have said that you're not collecting mass data for the sake of privacy, but where would you get the data to train the AI into recognizing the faces?
Can you rephrase your POI again?
You said that your site would not support collecting mass data, but where would you get the data to train the AI into recognizing the faces?
Thank you for the questions. Well, as the opposition side, we did not deny the fact that data should not be surveillance and should not be monitored fully in order to getting the information. Like we track the individual. However, with our targeted surveillance, let me repeat, targeted surveillance, but by this surveillance is that we focus on the effective way in order to ensure that we reach a target spot by limiting our powers too much on the privacies of the people. Moreover, we also focuses on the legal framework and accountability framework where the judicial approval or any other authority need to check and balance this power, because government cannot misuse any power aside from their jurisdictions or aside from their authority if the judicial approval was not given at all. Moving to our first analysis, is that national security measure is indispensable for defending critical infrastructure that support our economy and living conditions. Since cyber attacks mainly targeted power grid and other important critical infrastructure, such as healthcare system and financial institutions, which have severe consequences for both privacy and public safety. For instance, the 2021 Colonial Pipeline cyber attack has disrupted fuel supplies across the eastern United States, leading to widespread panic due to the shortages of the use of fuel for the use of energy. This attack required the necessity of national security. Accepted.
Side opposition second speaker has said that in order to collect this information, we will only target specific civilian. But how are you sure that in this target is accurate? And second of all, even if it's target civilian, they have to go through a mass collection of data in order to make sure this target is accurate.
Thank you for the question. So, turning points on this way, what if the proposition side only overemphasize the fact that this surveillance would run through the data of each individual? What if your side trying to putting down by prioritizing the privacy? How would you also do such things by collecting all of this data and information if your countries were in the state of emergency? If your country were in the current threats of this emergency, how would you do it well? Because without the intervention of the government, remember, the obligations of the government is to protect people, and privacy is one of the human rights principles along with the other side principle. Without national security, other rights that are aligned with the principles of personal privacy, such as right to life, right to education, cannot be assured, all without the intervention of the government. Thank you. Moving on to our Second analysis is that failing to prioritize national security would severe cause economic loss on the effects of data breaches, lead to job losses, reduce consumer trust, and economic instability. In fact, according to the IBM's 2023, the global average cost of data breach is $4.45 million US, that including legal fee, regulatory fine, and the loss of businesses due to damage of the company's reputation. If the government trying to ignore this security, the economic repercussions would devastate society and harm individual financial privacy. Thus, by investing in national security, it's not only prevent economic downturn, but also ensure a stable, privacy-protected digital environment. For the third analysis then, is that national security drive innovation and technology. No, thank you. Which benefit both security and privacy. Through public-private partnership, government and tech company can develop solutions that safeguard data while detecting threat. For example, Apple use of differential privacy allows the company to collect insight without leaking users' information, which demonstrate how technology can advance simultaneously both privacy and security goals successfully. Therefore, by elevating technology for national security purpose, we can create a more secure and privacy-respecting digital ecosystem system where it benefits society as a whole. Now, turning to the third argument, national security measure, when implemented transparently, would foster public trust and strengthen through effective security by building public trust, which is vital for social cooperation. When citizens see tangible outcome of this measure, such as safer street and protected digital space, they are more likely to support. Proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Government Whip. Now I will, the Deputy Opposition. Now I would like to welcome Government Whip.
I will begin my speech when I say my first word. Good afternoon, everyone, adjudicators and all of the audience in this hall. This motion today states that this House believes that internet governance should prioritize privacy over internet governance. And the burden that we set on our side today is that individual rights should be prioritized and national security cannot be justified when the government is breaching people's data for nothing. Because the opposition side has brought up national crisis into this debate, which means that in case of terrorism, in case of cyber attacks, does this still give the right for government to go through all your phones, internet history, just to check whether to see if you're a terrorist or not? Because on our side, we do not justify that. Because during cyber attacks, you do not necessarily know, you do not have proof that whoever's doing it is the people inside your country, which I will be expanding it later on into the cooperation of people in the country when privacy is actually being prioritized. Because in states of crisis, you don't know who is the culprit. Let me tell you, because let's say there is a terrorist attacking Phnom Penh right now. Do you know who's causing it? Are you sure that it's actually Cambodian people? Or can you even be sure that it could be foreigners? You see, there's no 100% chance that these are caused by Cambodians themselves. That does mean that the government should not have these rights to control and to breach people's data just for the sake of national security. Now, I would like to go to the first clash today is that, so for the first point, the opposition has brought up that privacy is a risk.
POI.
No, thank you. Privacy is a risk when national security is nowhere to be seen because the fact that people's lives are at risk, so national security matters more. So this point, as I've mentioned again in my rebuttal, because even when people's life at risk, privacy still remains a fundamental right in this case, because the government can't just go to check everyone's internet data just because they suspect that somebody is a terrorist, because you don't actually know, you don't have proof that your own people are actually the culprit of this. And on our side, we're saying that the privacy is the groundwork of national security. And I think that we win on this clash because that from my first speaker, we have said that if people actually cooperated in a society where the government actually care about people's privacy, then it will actually lead to a more collaborative society where legal and ethical privacy frameworks will actually be better into building a better security system where people privacy actually matters as well. Now moving on to the second clash, side opposition has brought up the fact that we should justify privacy just for the sake of national security. And again, I've already explained this part. But on our side, we are also saying that privacy always remains a fundamental aspect into people living. And okay, now moving on to some of the rebuttals, I would like to make some rebuttals now to most of the government points. So the second speaker of opposition, they also came up and say that, oh, we can prioritize privacy and national security at the same time. But let me ask you, side opposition, what does priority mean? If you can say that you can have both at the same time, then that's not privacy, then that's not a priority. If that's the case, then why are we even debating today? Because look, I could also say that you can have privacy and national security at the same time. No, you cannot say that, because when you prioritize something, you put that thing first. And why shouldn't that be security, the opposition may ask. Is that because, for my second speaker, because in reality, my second speaker has also brought up that these security first policies, like China's internet surveillance system called Skynet and Great Firewall, often erodes everyone's privacy under the justification of national safety. By prioritizing privacy first, we can also design security frameworks where privacy also matters to people, which means that we can also gain people trust into this. And also, side opposition has also brought up that cyber attacks are getting common these days. It could lead to nationwide internet outage and stopping operation completely in the country. I think this is something called digital paralysis, and that security is much more needed during emergency. Because look, not all crisis requires for the government to check everyone's phone and internet data. Because, okay, if the opposition side actually wants to erode privacy immediately just to check for the culprit, then the opposition side needs to prove to us the effectiveness of this method called blanket surveillance, which means that the broad surveillance that the government could bring in national crisis could actually work when they don't even know who the culprit is. So if the opposition side want their points to stand over there, then they need to prove us the effectiveness of this method. And moving on to the third point is that they have claimed that our side is actually looking over the efficiency of national security system during national crisis, because on their side they believe that they can identify threats and protect people much faster. Crisis responses don't always require constant surveillance. I've been mentioning this again and again, because security first policies during crisis will allow government to breach on our data. No, thank you. Will actually allow government to breach on our data, overuse it, and then they're gonna justify it as national security and using it as an excuse to check everyone's phone. And on our side, we don't believe that that is the right thing to do. And plus, if we prioritize privacy as a main goal before security, we can implement frameworks that are equipped to respond efficiently through relegated and transparent emergency protocols, ensuring that security actions are justified and right-respecting rather than preemptively invasive. Now, I would like to summarize my team cases again, because people privacy, on our case, we are saying that people privacy, by prioritizing privacy, it will lead to a much more secure world, since people trust their government, leading to a much more collaborative society. Because people, when you're building a wall, you're not just keeping the people or the outsiders out, you're also keeping the people inside. So when people have trust in their government, they will actually comply to the government rules, they will comply to their measures, and they will comply to everything that the government does. And in even cases of national crisis, we believe that if the people trust the government enough, they will actually consent the government to use their information to check for the culprit, which is something that the opposition side has wanted since the beginning. Moving on to the second point is that we believe that privacy is the fundamental, no thank you, is the fundamental ground into building a good security system, because they have the right to do so. Because when you're born, you already have a social contract to live by the government's rule. But what is the government rule then? It's to serve its people. So, and therefore, And moving on to the last point is that too much security will lead to oppression and abuse of power when making decisions. And my second speaker has brought up the cases of China and also the cases of pandemic in Wuhan, North Korea, and also Bangladesh when Thank you.
Thank you, Government Whip. Now I would like to welcome the opposition's whip.
I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, imagine a world where your every online move from your late-night browsing habit to your financial transaction is shielded by the strongest privacy regulation. But at what cost? As we champion the importance of personal privacy, we must also acknowledge the stark reality that our interconnected world is increasing privacy or is increasing fraud with threat, terrorism, cyber attack, and other forms of violence that know no border. Prioritizing privacy over national security could create a digital landscape that empower malicious actors, leaving nations vulnerable and citizens at risk. In the battle between privacy and national security, we must understand that national security is the foundation upon which our privacy can safely thrive. Without security, privacy becomes a hollow promise, jeopardizing not just our freedom but our very safety. Panel, two things I will do in my today's speech. First, I will make a few rebuttals for the proposition team, and secondly, I will summarize from my team arguments. Moving on to our first rebuttal, while the proposition team will mention about the prioritize the privacy is in order to protect the individual rights. As our opposition team, we did not deny that individual right is not important, since it is stated in our constitutions and also in the principle of our fundamental right. But you have to know that we cannot exercise our individual right completely if we don't have a safety or national security. And moving on to our second rebuttal, that the proposition team claimed that by prioritizing the privacy is lead to the outreach of the government power. As you know that since all the government have to access to the data or the personal data of the citizen in order to protect the country as a whole, and they are not gonna access to the everyone personal data or like providing the personal data to other local authority. No, thank you, unless you are convicted the crime. Because like government cannot just go randomly into the individual data or giving your individual data to the other local company or staff if it's not necessary. So in the reality, for example, in the Cambodia, if the government want to get the personal data or the personal information of someone, the one who have the authority to ask is the ACU itself. So if the ACU did not ask for or did not request to the court to get the personal data, they cannot get the personal data. And the third rebuttal is the proposition team claimed that privacy can build a public trust, which is not true. We, as an opposition team, we believe that the national security is a ground to build a public trust within the two reasons. The first reason is effective security measure build public trust, which is vital for social cooperation. When citizens see the tangible outcome from these measures, such as safer street and protected the digital space, that are more likely to support and even participate in security initiative. For instance, according to the Global Cybersecurity Index, Singapore is one of the top nations in cybersecurity, since the government has successfully maintained the high public trust by being transparent about its security effort, though creating a stable environment where business can operate securely and citizens can engage in digital activity without fear or external threat. And the public trust can be built on the foundation of transparent national security, where individuals can freely enjoy their personal privacy at the utmost levels. And for our second reason for this is accountability framework ensure the national security measures don't develop into abuse power. According to the International Telecom Union, the UK have established oversight mechanisms such as the Investigatory Power Act to ensure that surveillance is not excessive and and proportionate. This check and balance system make it difficult for government to misuse their power, as this act requires judicial approval for certain surveillance activity by balance the security need with the privacy right. Therefore, these accountable mechanism provide a necessary safeguard through ensuring the national security is implemented fairly and openly for the protecting the citizen privacy. So now, moving on to our summary of our argument. Our first speaker from the opposition team has claimed that the national security is a prerequisite for the privacy because measure of national security act as the barrier against the cyber threat, keeping a personal data safe from external invasion. They serve as an added layer for both government and personal information. Measure of surveillance hence the sort of the target credible threat in proportional manner to the intensive privacy by preventing.
POI.
No, thank you. By preventing the malevolence from eroding in the first place. Numerous laws such as GDPR dedicate how data should be acquired and also involve a proper checkup to make sure that everyone's right not violated. This regulation are intended as a control measure to ensure that the security action are warranted as well as the provision for openness. Finally, it is possible to involve both national security and the protection of the right of the citizen and eliminate the abuse. And our second speaker has claimed that the prioritizing national security is more important for sustainable, no thank you, a digital economy which help protect the personal privacy as well, because the strengthening of national security means it's in need safeguard. It is the key of the infrastructure, including energy productions, medical, financial facility from the cyber threat. The effect of cybercrime and devastating since they interfere with the privacy and security of the people. And the future example include the colonial cyber attack of 2021. A reliable information platform is required in the safe storage, for example, and individual information and money and citizen safety from cyber threat as well. And lack of concern with the national security bring about lost data, lost job, reduced consumer confidence, and instability arising from cyber threat. The worldwide mean expense of a data breach in 4.45 million, and the government must put the resource into the security to avoid the economic crisis and the instability. As the member of the opposition team, we proudly to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, the opposition whip. Now I would like to give the floor to the opposition reply. You will have 4 minutes.
So my speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. As the reply speaker from the opposition side, three things I will do in my speech for this reply speech as the ending of this debate. Firstly, I will try to compare the world between both sides of the houses. Secondly, I will make a comparison of the classes and what are we debating on. And lastly, I will try to show you and show panels, all the audiences, why our team arguments is the winner of this debate and why should we take the motion back home. Firstly then, this debate was focusing on the prioritizations of national security, privacy over national security in terms of internet governance. The motion itself stated that the term prioritize, it means that the proposition will just paint an unrealistic world where that national security is something that should become first. We, our opposition, did not deny the fact that the term prioritize means leaving one and over another by trying to wasting it or trying to dropping it away. Prioritize, it refers to choosing something first over another by leaving another to do it later. Moving to our classes of this debate. The classes here is the scopes of the surveillance. Propositions trying to advocate for proposition trying to state it that there is a mass of surveillance by dismiss the effectiveness of this approach. However, history shown us that the broad surveillance can be a powerful tool in preventing large-scale attack. It is essential to implement the safeguard and oversight mechanism to ensure the surveillance power are used responsibly and ethically. Secondly, then, is the public trust and the government accountability. Again, they keep reiterating about public trust, about mass surveillance. How about others issue? Like my argument has been raising up. There was lack of that. Economic and social cooperation. Where does it come from that? National security. While all of these are the national is something as a foundation where the nationals, nations is grow, it's need, it's a collective good that serve the well-beings and the survivals of people, whether those are developing or developing countries. Now let's move to what the side proposition has lack of. Firstly, aside from the surveillance and the building trust, they keep mentioning about it. They had not given any arguments at all. Secondly, then, the example that provided by them is only from one country that use a communism system, which are not applicable for everyone, even the democratic people. How would the communist country give a fully human rights to people? This is the points that we need to reconsider. Another thing is that the example that provided by them are not applicable in the context. As we know, digital technology is emerging. It is a technology that keeps evolving and changing every single day. We cannot push the government when there is an overemphasis of the privacy, and then the government would not take any measures, because government need bureaucratic procedure, which are complex, that are running from the legislative and implementation to executive. That's why we trying to oppose that government should have an intervention and prioritize national security, because we believe that only the government is the top authority that play an important role in this case. Therefore, our side has presented and should win this debate as we try to raise a compelling case and strong argument for the importance of national security. We have demonstrated how strong security measure can protect our critical infrastructure by ensuring the well-being and survivals of the people, also improving the economy and preserve our way of life. On top of that, we also shown how a balance can struck between security and privacy, ensuring that our rights are protected while our nation remains safe for the citizens, well-being, and survival at all costs as the collective good. With that being said, the opposition proudly objects this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for the opposition reply. Now I would like to invite the government reply. You will be having 4 minutes.
I will begin my speech. Now, first of all, before I begin the reply speech from side propositions, I would like to mention what side opposition reply has spoken. Opposition side has clearly misinterpreted the definition, or at least the way we have characterized the word prioritize. Prioritize here again, I would like to clarify it. It means to giving importance to one, even at the risk of limiting another protection capability. So in the world of side opposition here, it means that if you prioritize national security, it does not matter if the individual privacy is violated, because in this case, in their world, they prioritize national security and do anything in their power to ensure that national security is protected. Now, they have also mentioned that the same principle doesn't apply to communist country in terms of the individual privacy protections and how the government use it. I would like to clarify on this point as well. We have mentioned in our second point, in our arguments, that In terms of individual rights and in terms of the social contracts here, and the rule of law here is that it does not matter which ideology in this world that the country is holding. The thing is, with the rule of law, is to serve its people. It does not mean that even if you are a communist country, you are a free country, a democratic, you still serve your people, and people should be the center of any regulation and policy. Now, they have also said that the government should have full authority in terms of like protecting their nation. However, let us imagine this. How can you have a safe and a peaceful country when their citizen is literally fighting against the government? The government is consists of a small group of people compared to what the individuals that made up majority of the societies. Now, I would like to give Now I will explain the panels and this audience why we should win this debate by summarizing what the opposition has spoken so far. Now, they have said that privacy comes from national security, and the act of national security can defend the privacy only on the surface though. This is what we have rebutted against them. The act of national security can only defend the privacies on the surface. However, national security shall not still be justified even in the state of this kind of like emergency and such, because it means because it means that by prioritizing this national security, it means to an oppressive civilian and potential risk of misuse as well. Now, onto the second point is that without the national security, there will be cyber attack. First of all, cyber attack are extreme cases and mostly happen from external sources. There are no accuracy to prove that this specific group of people will be the one who like behind all this terrorist attack, and to assume that it means to violate their rights which have been promised from birth. Then it also only work in terms of emergency. It only work if there are actual proper declaration of the state of emergency as well, where some kind of investigation can be carried on, and even then the individual right and the individual rights should still be protected even in that case. Now, onto that third point, they have mentioned that national security can lead to productivity and secure privacy. Again, by prioritizing the national security, they can go through individual privacy to assure the principle that save more life than one. In this regard, it will not be effective to assure the privacy, like the example of China's that we have brought up, because in this regard, the national security or the government can make up excuses that they're using it for the national security, even violating the human right, and to use it for their personal gain. Now, I will also prove it further what our side have proven a burden very effectively. First of all, we have told you that individuals' right to privacy must be upheld because individuals are born in this world and voluntarily agree to the sacrifice some of their right in exchange for the government protection and some other right. Internet governance must prioritize this right to ensure the other society. We also told you that the trust and collaboration is earned through the process will make risk management as citizens will have better trust in the government. Also, we have also said that justifying national security to overlook the individual privacy can lead to the misuse and oppressions with the accused of national emergency. And in this, and by all of this, we proudly propose that individual rights should be prioritized in the internet governance instead of national security. Thank you.
Thank you both team for your remarks and speeches. So now I would like to give the floor to our judges for questions. So the question will be limited to 2 per judges, and you can ask all at the same time, and I will give minutes towards the debaters to respond back.
I hope I'm audible here. So first thing first, so the question is how long? For 2 questions each, right?
Yeah, 2 questions.
All right, I'll begin. Now, my first question is to the proposition side. What does it look like in your world when the internet governance focus on privacy over national security?
You can ask the questions all of the judges, and then they will answer at once.
All right. The question for opposition then, what does it look like when the internet governance focus on national security and not privacy? Tell me, give me the picture of it on what does it look like. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I have another question for both teams. What is the current status quo? What is the internet environment that we live in right now? What is the urgency in this debate? So what does the status quo look like that we need to prioritize privacy? What is the current status quo look like that we need to prioritize national security? So that's my 2 questions each. Thank you.
Okay, so for my question to the government side, so how to build trust between the government and the people through the prioritize of the privacy? And then for the opposition side, so yes, you have provide more argument on the importance of the national security. So how can you clarify what are the important roles of the government in securing the national security over the privacy? Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have 2 questions to the government side. You mentioned a moment ago about human rights and data, and also cyber attack. So I want to know if the government have the proof of the information that any individual attack to the government side, should be government take the national security over the prioritize to the individual privacy.
Excuse me, can you clarify the question again?
I mean, for example, if the government have the proof of information that the cyber attack that the opposition side raised a moment ago can find out individual who attack to the government in terms of national security, should the government can access to the personal privacy to get the information? Another question to the opposition side, what procedure that you should to balance between the privacy and the national security? Thank you.
Thank you to all the judges for the question. Now I would like to provide 1 minute for both teams to deliberate your answers, and you will have 7 minutes each to answer all of the questions. Thank you. Everyone, so I would like to invite either one of those sides want to volunteers to answer the questions. If not, I will volunteer you which sides. 3, 2, please, the opposition responds to the question. You have 70 minutes.
Do we need to like 7 minutes for all the questions? Right?
All of the questions.
Thank you. So so I will be respond to lecturer's Apsara questions. So your first question focusing on the internet governance, and you want to know what our world and what we paint the pictures of our opposition would look like. So in our world, we would prioritize the survival and well-being of the citizens, because even in the peaceful times, privacy is very limited. Individual privacy is very limited, and it is only working during the peaceful time. Thinking about the armed conflict, if armed conflict happens, what would the government do? Would the government try to neglect the importance of national security while overemphasize the privacy, which can be really hard for the government to tackle those organized armed groups or those terrorist groups that could attack the people? Another thing is that our world would be look like a place where national security taking a step to build for privacy. Just like what we mentioned in our argument is that we prioritize national security. Not just only we want to improve the right to privacy, but also other principles of human rights as well, such as right to life, right to freedom of speech, right to press conference, and also right to live right to life as well. With that being said, this is what our world and what our pictures would be paying for our opposition side in terms of governance. Regarding the second question, your question is asked about current status quo of technology in terms of governance in our side. So basically what our stance is that we focus on the cyber warfare the most. Because cyber warfare right now has not been regulated, and even with the legal framework itself, it is non-legally binding. It means that even though there are some drafting of law regulations, this type of law is not binding. So if it's not binding, it's not applicable enough to ensure that to enforce the culprit or the perpetrator that are committed such crimes, such as terrorist or organized armed group. Secondly, then is that our size is that cyber warfare come from technology that is what we call emerging. It keeps evolving every single day. So in order to regulate the legal framework itself, it is really difficult, and it takes a complicated process to do such a framework to ensure that the cyber warfare to address. So the government as a top authority has the right and they exercise the fullest power of themselves that was regulated by law and collaborate together with other countries of the government to address this issue, such as counterterrorism and transnational crime as well.
So I will be responding to the question regarding the important roles of the government in prioritizing the national security. So the goal in this context, of course, government is having a responsibility for protecting its citizens in its communities, particular community societies as a whole, not just a segment of the country, but as a whole. And that is why the government prioritize the national security, and this is also because when the government itself also the role of government is to build a strong national measures that make sure that the citizens in the countries have safety, especially in this motion itself in terms of the cyber security, where the government have to ensure that the government can combat and also prevent any forms of cyber threats or cyber attacks like hacking or espionage or data breaches. Yes, thank you.
So I will be further respond to the last questions. So to Dr. Diepgong, you has mentioned about what are the procedures our opposition sides would take in order to ensure there is a balance between privacy and national security. So firstly, as what we mentioned in the arguments, is that we would just link to what the propositions has trying to reiterate their argument, saying that only privacy keep improving the public trust and improving the societal cooperation. While on the other hand, we opposition regarding this matter, firstly, we would building a trust between people. So our opposition believe that only a transparent and accountable security effort that we should provide it for the people is applicable in this case. Taking Singapore as an example, Singapore is one of the top nations in cybersecurity. And look, Singapore is a democratic state, right? If democratic principle should provide a more privacy to its own people, but rather than Singapore did not do the thing. Singapore, the government has successfully maintained the high public trust by being transparent about its security effort. Within this approach, the government itself can create a stable environment where business can operate securely and citizens can engage in digital activity without the fear of external threat or the over abuse of power from the government side. Therefore, through a public trust, we can build on the foundation of transparent national security, where individuals can freely enjoy their personal privacy at the utmost level. Thank you.
Thank you to the opposition side. Now I would like to request the government side to respond. You have 7 minutes. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for the adjudicators for such good questions that you have brought on our side. So I would like to do this a bit different. I would like to answer from the last question from Dr. Diepkong first. So Dr. Diepkong has asked our side that in cases of national crisis, let's say the government has proof. So in our debate here, let's bring out the case of terrorism again. And Dr. Diepkong has asked us if, let's say, the government has the proof that, oh, let's say person A is actually the culprit, is actually the terrorist. So do the government have the right to erode that person's privacy? And the answer we are going to say is no. Because why? Allow me to elaborate. Because if that is the case, and let's say that they do have the proof that, let's say, person A is actually the culprit, is actually the terrorist, then law enforcement or police will actually issue a warrant to catch them and just put them in jail. There's no need to just check all their data and all their history or just going through their phone or all their internet history, right? Because if they actually, let's say, they commit a crime, then just issue a warrant and put them in jail. There's no need to access all of their information anyway. So yes, even in cases like this, people's privacy should still not be eroded. Just for this matter. And now I would like to answer to Ms. Cheng Usa's question, which is what does our world look like when we actually promote privacy? Is that when we actually promote privacy, let's say everyone here, let's say all our data are secured when we go online. We go onto, let's say, social media, or we access some government sites and we input our information, our credentials and so on, right? All our data will be kept safe in our world, and it will prevent the government from misusing it, even in terms of crisis that we actually debated on, let's say in cases of COVID-19, for example. And it prevents, when we prioritize privacy, it prevents the government from misusing our data to actually access our other information that is not related. For example, during COVID-19, what information do you need from a patient, right? You need their name, you need their age, or maybe their symptoms and so on. And if you actually prioritize privacy, people, like the government, will actually access these essential informations. But if privacy is not seen in this case, then let's say if it's a communist country, then the government will actually look into, let's say, the political history of each individual, which side are they on, which party are they on, and then they will actually abuse that power to put them, to arrest them, for example, and using the privacy erosion as an excuse. And when people's privacy are actually being prioritized, it will actually lead to the trust from the public, because they believe that the government will actually not abuse their power onto their people. And so people will actually trust the government more. But I will leave a much better explanation to Dr. Lee Rotana's question to my teammate. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear third speaker, for such an elaborative answer, and thank you, the adjudicator, for the question as well. Now, I would like to respond to your second question regarding like what is the status quo, or basically what is the situation right now. So first, I will structure it into 3 layers. The first one is, right now, the leaders in like different countries, let's take Cambodia for example, to make it easier, they have tried their best to build like and implement also like to raise campaigns to make sure that the policy regarding the individual privacy is more secure and more like widespread throughout the citizen. Because right now, in fact, let's say it's like most developing country, especially like our country, we still have very much or like limited knowledge regarding this kind of thing, regarding the internet governance as well as the individual privacy. So that's what the leaders are doing right now. However, there are still some cases that some of the leaders within a specific country, some of them are still not being transparent with the people. And what do I mean by not being transparent? Against this, I would like to bring up the cases or the example of like China's, for example. This government has actually like tried to use the excuse of like the state of emergency to basically justify or rationalize like human right violation in terms of the privacy, and go through or dig through like these individual data in order to make sure that some of their personal gain or like interest in terms of propagandas and in terms of politics is more secure. And this has led to the third things is that this have led to a lack of cooperations and distrust among the citizens. So in terms of emergency and stuff, just like what has just passed in terms of like the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been distrust among the citizen. Is that the citizen is not really like they don't really trust the update of the outbreak, how many cases, for example, because they think that the government are hiding it just for the sake of their publicity and such. And the other thing is that they are scared that the government is using their data for something else instead of the people's safety. Now on to the third question regarding on how to build trust between government and individual through internet government. So in this as well, it will be further supported by what we have mentioned as the answer to the second question, because trust here in any kind of relationship, it's built through respect. And in order to gain or like to build trust between the government, the leader, and the individual, here in the internet governance, there should be respect of like of the citizens' privacy. Why? Against this, I would like to mention this is the rule of law or the rule of like policy work in like different constitution or different countries. Every single government, every single leader, they owe it to their people regardless of ideologies that they hold, whether it's communist, democratic, or any kind of ideology at all. They need to put the people first if I'm implementing or making this policy. And the government should protect their people at all costs. Because in the social contract, individuals exchange their rights for this kind of protection from the government and to have the basic rights such as the freedom of speech and so on. So most of their rights should be, all of their rights should be protected under the law and constitution by this leader at all costs. And in exchange, individual right will also build this relationship by providing the information necessary through survey or cooperation in the state of emergency, such as the arrest or investigation, if there are actually accurate information or there are actually like accurate evidence that this group of people are doing it, they will cooperate through that. And even so, in this kind of state, individual privacy must still be protected even in this kind of emergency, because this is what, at the very end of the day, the leader should prioritize. Thank you.
Thank you for answering it right on time. So now I would like to invite the judges to do their deliberations. Our team will be standby to collect your scoring as well. So I think the debaters can relax a little, and drink some water. Yes? Oh, shake hand, yeah. We will get to that, sit down. We will get to that, don't worry. So before going to the scoring and everything, I think some of our audience want to know a little bit about you guys. So I think introduce ខ្លួនឯងតិចបានអត់ជាភាសាខ្មែរក៏បានអង់គ្លេសក៏បានដែរ
I would like to hand over the stage to side opposition. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, the proposition side, for giving me the floor. So I'm going to do these introductions really quick. So my name is Keung Kim Hap, and currently I am a double degree student majoring in international law at the senior years at the Royal University of Laws and Economics, and also the third year students here at ISVP of AUPP in international relations. So my interest in the debate is that actually I was forced to join it. Actually, I have no goal of debating. Another thing is that because I want to learn something that like it's created a what we call a logical thinking, and also the improving my critical thinking, where I can use to support my academics journey as well as in both laws and international relations. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's very detailed. Anyone within Apsara Tech?
So do proposition one to take the floor for a second.
Okay, so hello everyone. I think I don't think there's no need for my teammates to come up if they don't want to. Do you want to? If not, then I'll just introduce us as a team. So basically, we are AUPP Capycoons, and the reason behind this name is that I was not the one who named our team. It was basically these two. Basically, one of them like capybaras and one of them like raccoons, and we could not decide on a name, and we just go for AUPP Capycoons, and that's how the team is created. So yeah, we've been friends for a long time. And for myself, I am Pisati Brapong. My nickname is Numpang. Simple. And basically, the reason why we formed this team is that we want to get to know the debating world a little bit more. And just because we're friends and we study at the same school. So we all study at AUPP, American University of Phnom Penh, and I'm a major. Actually, I'm not a major in any social studies like law or international relations or anything. We all are IT students, and the reason that we joined this competition, we believe that it's actually not just going to help us improve our debating skills, but at the same time, it's going to help us in our majors. So yeah, as a major in software development, and these two are computer science, I believe. So that's all from me. So if my teammate has anything to say, then I'll leave the stage to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since he mentions his nickname, I would like to introduce our nickname too. His name is Bunchai, and his nickname is Nom Katai. We agree. Because we said so. Anyway, and for me, our societies over there, they name me Nom Kom. I don't know why, but I think I love Nom Kom. And I would like to add on in terms of the reason that we joined this competition, and I feel like a lot of us can relate to this if you stay since preliminary round. We joined to improve our debate skill, but we stay for the food and the treatment. I really love the foods. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I think our judges is done. Thank you for both teams to introduce yourselves. So I think during the score deliberations one more time, I would like to invite you to shake hands in the middle. So photographers, stand by, please. Thank you. So since our debaters actually introduced themselves a little bit during the deliberations, I think I want to give the floor to the judges a little bit for some feedback, or is there anything that you want to comment during the debate, or anything at all that you want to discuss?
Just to clarify with moderator, I'm just going to give my impression, right? Moderator, come back. I need you. Yeah, just to give an impression of this debate, right?
Impression and a little bit feedback for them.
Okay, do I be cute or do I be harsh?
A little bit of both for them to take a little bit.
You cannot have the best of both worlds, but sure.
We can try.
Okay, we can give it a try. All right, I will begin the impression of this debate. We will not give you the verdict, unfortunately, because that is moderator job. I will not take her job, so she will actually do that. So my name is Utsa. It's a great honor to see familiar faces, because as someone who in the debate community, yes, your face are very familiar to me as well. All right, first thing first, congratulations for coming to final round. Can everyone give them a round of applause for working hard until here? All right, now I think I just have a few words, just 2 minutes is enough. Number one, I think this debate is actually very, very interesting. I think it's also very engaging. I think one of the feedback I want to give you guys is this. Look, debate is not only about providing an argument, but it's also take each other at the best case. That is to say that you're trying to engage with the point that given rather than just talk about your side. Because debate is also about building your house, but at the same time, you're making sure that the other side of the house, their house will be less strong than you at the end of the day. Because because debate is never about right or wrong, but just better or worse. So you always have to compare on what are the benefit, what are the harm, and what is the value, and why is your value is more important than the other. That's number one. But second things though is that I think there was a little bit of definitional challenge in which like I think both sides do not agree on in terms of like what does like in terms of this motion, what particular area are we talking about? Are we talking about democratic state or are we talking about a communist state, right? Generally in this regard, I think it's also good to actually clarify that on what is the status quo that actually look like, that we really debate on this motion, on why this motion is important in today's society. But the second things though, I think the government, not government side, but I think government in general, you should also talk about the incentive. You should also talk about what is like the government role, responsibility, and incentive. Sure, they're protecting the people, but what is the best way to protect the people in terms of internet governance, right? So I think these are the questions that you can look at. But POI are highly encouraged to ask and accept, because POI is when it's actually show that it's very engaging, right? So I highly encourage opposition to ask more POI as well, so that POI make it more engaging. The second things though, I think there is a lack of comparison coming from both sides. I don't think you guys really compare it. Like, look, this is what look like on opposition when we prioritize national security and we put down privacy, right? And then on proposition, I want you guys to point it out. This is the comparison on what it look like when you prioritize privacy over national security, and how does it actually better than the other side, right? Again, debate is always about comparative. You would need to try to compare as much as possible. Yeah. And yep, all the best, and may the best debater win today round. Thank you.
Okay, I think both groups have done a great job, and from my comments, so I think from the government side, I think you have the ball in your hand because you are the government, so you have the right like to provide the regulation, the framework. You have whatever the rights to do it, so you should focus more on that, and because you have all the rights to do everything, you have the rights to like prioritize the privacy over the national security as well. So what you want to give to the people so that they can feel safe about that. So you have to provide stronger argument on that part as well in order to ensure that your decision is right. You would like to prioritize the privacy over the national security. So if you can focus more on that point, it would be more like interesting to debate with the opposition side. Yes, and for the opposition side, I think you have done a good job as well, because you can provide a lot of cases. So if you can like provide the extreme case on the national security part, then it would be very good as well. If you like get the extreme like example to focus more on the national security part. So without that, without the national security part, then the privacy will be like nothing as well, because this is the most important thing when you have to do the decision. Then national security will be over the privacy in the extreme case. So we cannot forget the national security. Okay, that's my feedback and comments. Thank you.
I have one comment for the government side. I think, like Dr. Ratana mentioned, that you are the government, so you have more rights to implement the law or act. But you should have multiple point of view on what is the privacy or what is the human rights, because you raise a lot about human rights. But when you raise about human rights, you pick up the example from the communist country rather than from the democratic country. For the opposition side, I think you did a good job and good explanation and human as well. Thank you.
Without further ado, I would like to announce the winner and the runner-up. So we can start drum rolling. We will also, okay. We were waiting for that cue. So for the winners goes to, drum roll, Apsara Tech opposition side. For for AUPP, Capycoon, you are the runner-up. So first, I would like to invite Mr. T3, Executive Director of Open Development Cambodia, to give the prize to the winner.